Hello everybody, Shinjo here. Welcome back to Let's Talk Anime, the series where you guys give me suggestions on things to discuss on anything involving anime. We are here at episode 69, obviously a funny number for a lot of people online. And the first topic that I was going to discuss was initially planned to be in the previous episode, but considering the episode number, I figured I had to discuss it here. So without further ado, let's begin with our first topic, conception. I know my tone of voice already gave everything away, but just wait for a bit, allow me to get my thoughts out first. So, I don't know how many years ago this came out. It might have been 2021, but I remember when this came out that I think it was Giguk that made a joke about this show because it is a ridiculous premise. And I think it might be based off of some sort of game or something. It certainly seems like it would be. So basically, the plot of this is the main character and his childhood friend, because of course she is, they get transferred to this world and he basically has to impregnate all of these females to raise an army or something like that. I don't remember what reason that they gave behind it, but it was a very dumb reason in my opinion. But yeah, you can forget the whole premise of the reason why. Just keep in mind that he has to impregnate all these women. And of course, he has to do it on screen while trying to get past censors. There are very few things that I don't give the full 3-episode watch before I discuss it. This was one of them. I think I gave it to halfway through episode 2. It was at that point that I just didn't really care anymore. So let's get into the negatives. It's too complicated of a plot. Like I said, he has to impregnate all these girls, and of course, one of them is his childhood friend, so of course that's something that has to happen. But the reasoning behind it and everything around the show just seems a bit too complicated. Tells you everything you need to know, considering the fact that I don't care enough to even remember why everything's going on in this universe. And if I'm gonna be honest, the character designs are a bit bland. Because if I look at this guy, I wouldn't be able to tell what show he's from. He's a black-haired guy wielding a sword. Is he from Sword Art Online? Who knows? Although I think that's being a little bit too generous, because at least I know what Kirito looks like. This guy just looks more generic. And I think that's the only brownie point that you'll ever hear somebody give Sword Art Online. And like I mentioned already, the premise of it is just a bit too risque. It just seems like it has all these convoluted plot reasons, and of course, the characters doing the deed, just for the sake of horny teenagers. The one good thing that I can give with this show is the song that plays at the end of the first episode is really good. I don't remember what it sounds like off the top of my head, but it must be good enough for me to write about it. Unfortunately, that's really the only things that I can discuss with this show. It's honestly, when you get down to it, kind of bland. And in my opinion, a show like this that's overly bland is something that's going to be forgotten about, besides the whole premise of the show. Even a show that's a little bit too edgy with their characters or premise is something that's more memorable to me because it makes me feel something. This show makes me feel nothing. So let's not waste any more time and completely wash our hands of this one and go to the next topic, 16-Bit Sensation, Another Layer. I believe that's the show's title. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna call this 16-bit. Well, this is definitely a nice palate cleanser after the last topic. This is a newer show. As a matter of fact, it's a show that came out this year, as long as you're watching this in 2023. And it follows the lead character, Konoha, where she worked for a crappy company. To be honest, I don't remember what the company that she works at in the present day of the show is, but they just drop you in the first episode and say, hey, you travel back in time. That's weird, isn't it? But just to give a brief synopsis of the show, brief being the loosest definition that I can use to describe this. First, consider that I've only seen 4 episodes of the show. So here's what I got from the show. Konoha is the main girl. She works for a crappy company. The co-workers don't listen to anything that she says. She meets a grandmother that's working at a rinky-dink shop and gets nostalgia blasted by all the old video games. She picks up some of the video games, enjoys them, takes them home, what have you, and she's eating at what's basically a McDonald's. She travels back to 1992. She meets all these characters and works at this company that's in the exact place that her current company is. She makes a game with them, and then goes back to the present. Then 4 years passed, she goes back to that time period that she was in, except now it's 1996 instead of 92. She meets all these characters again, they're wondering where she went, and she's just hanging out with them again, trying to convince the lead guy to basically waver from his ideals because of a computer difference or something like that. I can't really remember the details on that. But basically, she's just time hopping at this point. That's not really the best way that I can explain this show, but that's how I see it at this point. The first thing that I like about it are the differences between the workers at Alcohol Soft and Konoha. Because obviously Konoha is from, I think they even mentioned that it's 2023 in the current day. And then she travels back 30 years. Obviously the easy things are Konoha with her newfangled technology. The characters don't know how to react to it. But even things as minor as Konoha using modern slang and nobody knows what she's talking about. She even says Pog in an episode, and that is just hilarious to me. Also, the small character and show references seem like they might be just random product placement, and it probably is, but I really like it. It shows the differences between the modern day and back in 92 and 96. Even a cameo from Chisato from Licorice Recoil, and obviously other shows like Canon is brought up, and there might even be more little nods that I don't even catch. And like I mentioned, it's not a simple time travel show where you just travel back in time and that's where you stay. Because Konoha jumps to 92 and then 96 later. Judging from that theme, she might end up in the year 2000 next, so that's gonna be interesting if that happens. I think the thing that's most exciting me is what the show could be. Because it seems like the grandmother is influencing everything going on. Because obviously it was the games that Konoha got from her that allow her to travel back in time. And then Konoha interacts with a dog that is seemingly tied to the grandmother that makes her travel back in time again. And even a shot in the opening that seems to encourage this. If that's what's happening, I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm really excited to learn more. Unfortunately, now I have to discuss the things that I didn't like. And I feel like down the line, this show might be more episodic. Obviously, things are happening in every episode, and things that might pay off in the long run. But I feel like it might be more episodic where there's just a random episode that has nothing to do with anything. I feel like I'm gonna be wrong. I hope I'm gonna be wrong, because this is a show that I'm genuinely enjoying. Although this is where things get a little bit funny, because watching the first episode, I did not like Konoha at all. I don't know if it was just the mindset that I had, the voice that was provided, anything like that. Because obviously there are minor gripes that I could say, like her catchphrase of the worst gets old really quickly. But she grew on me in the second episode. The punchline to all of this is the fact that I didn't like her voice. Considering that I watched the original Japanese version, her voice is provided by Aoi Koga. And if you don't know that voice, that's the same person that does Kaguya's voice in Love is War. And hearing both voices back to back, it actually is a dead giveaway, because that is basically the Chibi Kaguyas. But Konoha really grew on me in the second episode, so hopefully she'll be a more comedic character without being too over the top. But moving on to the last topic in this video, and it is Pokemon Horizons. Again, pretty sure I discussed Pokemon Horizons already with Let's Talk Anime, but there are a few reasons that I'm doing it again. The first thing, I needed a third topic for this video. And the second thing is the first arc of Horizons has officially ended, with Liko and Roy setting off, being concluded with episode 26 or 27, somewhere around that ballpark. And the second arc is called something like The Shine of Terapagos, something to that effect. So I figured now would be a good benchmark for me to discuss what I feel about Horizons from the start to now with this first arc. Obviously, the first thing that I can discuss are the characters, and Liko and Roy, they're fine. I really like Liko. She's definitely a different protagonist than Ash, but I actually really like that. Roy feels like more of a traditional Ash sort of character, so they're kind of covering both of their bases in that sense. Even something as minor as Sprigatito and Fuecoco, I really like them. Although, Fuecoco is just the stereotypical I like to eat and I'm very stupid, which does get old really quickly, but part of me really likes it as well. Overall, with the other members of the Rising Voltaclers, they're fine. Few standouts to me are Orla, based off of design, and Molly because of her backstory. But a lot of the other ones, I honestly forget about a lot of the time. A lot of people seem to really like Freed, and I'm not sure exactly why. It might be the same sort of controversial take that I have, where I really don't care as much for Declan from Arc 5 that other people do. Then Murdoch is just kind of there. The only reason I remember him is because he's tied to Dot, which I really like Dot's character. I'm hoping she gets more development in the second arc. And then Ludlow, I can't even remember anything about him. He just spouts random quotes. And I think that's everybody on the Rising Voltaclers. I honestly don't know. If there's anybody else that I forgot about, then that's my bad, but that just tells you that they're honestly not that memorable to me. Obviously, the characters on the Rising Voltaclers are just okay to me. There are definitely some standouts, and there are some that I hope get more development going forward. And fortunately, this is something that I can talk about that I didn't get a chance to last time. This season is getting a dub. I have heard a lot of the voices, they fit really well, but I think the one thing that I can say that I'm really enjoying is the Brave Asagi's name is getting translated to, I think it says the Brave Olivine, which I really like that as well, because Olivine City, it's another Pokemon reference. I'm sure the Brave Asagi is a reference as well, but it's not something that I can think of off the top of my head. But since I watched the original version first, I'm still going to refer to it as the Brave Asagi. But for the Explorers, unfortunately, there haven't been many scenes with a lot of the secondary ones that I can say about. I really like Amethio. He's a really cool character that kind of seems like a Gladion sort of character, where he's kind of a villain, but kind of not really. And then everybody else on the team, I am not as well acquainted with yet. Obviously, there are some standouts, in my opinion, like, I can't even think of her name. The one that's with the pink hair and pigtails, who is actually voiced by the same VA as Pikachu, which is hilarious to me. But for a lot of the secondary members of the Explorers, I'm not as familiar with them. And obviously, the whole journey of Liko learning more about the pendant and Terapagos is going to be explored in the second arc. I'm really looking forward to that. I think the only negatives that I will say from the first arc are there are a lot of characters that have very little or no development. Fortunately for me, Orla hasn't gotten much development so far. Ludlow is just there fishing off the side of the boat half the time. The other half, he's just invisible. Then Amethio's two helpers, Zur and Conio, the only thing I can remember about them is one of them is a fan of Dot's live streams. But all of those issues may be corrected in the second arc or even going forward. I think if there was another criticism that I would have, is there are episodes in the first arc that just amount to basically nothing. The episode where Murdoch meets his old friend that they got into a squabble with, the only thing that comes from that episode is they meet Kabu at the end of it. The whole episode could have been taken out otherwise. But obviously there are some moments that I hope get more fleshed out going forward, like Roy's watch roll that basically hasn't done anything. Liko's Hatena, who's been owned for much less, has had more screen time. But obviously overall, I really like it. There are some issues, but I'm still enjoying it just for a benchmark of what can be set. But that is it for this episode of Let's Talk Anime. If you enjoyed, hit that like button down below, subscribe if you haven't. If you have any topics for me to discuss on Let's Talk Anime, leave them down in the comment section, and I'll see you next time. Momentai!